A couple weeks ago, I made a video about Marvel comic characters and what Lantern Corps many of them would belong to. We had Doctor Doom as a Green Lantern, Captain America as a Blue Lantern, we even threw Man-Thing in there as a Yellow Lantern. It was a pretty fun video, and if you want to see it, click on the box in the top right now. But that video had me considering the fact that this is a concept we can apply to a lot of different universes and mediums. For instance, in this video, we're going to be doing the same thing, but instead we'll discuss indie comic characters and what Lantern Corps best suits them. Green, yellow, red, we're going to go through them all. Before we get into it, feel free to drop a like if you like this kind of content. And if you want to be notified about future videos similar to this one, hit the subscribe button and the bell. Anywho, let's jump right in. Green is possibly the easiest of all the colors on the emotional spectrum to actually understand, and yet it's hard to define what it actually means. Willpower isn't really an emotion, after all, it's more of a characteristic or a trait of someone's. Regardless, one thing has been made very clear over the long history of the Green Lantern Corps. If you want to be a member, you've got to at least be No, but in all seriousness, Mark Grayson, aka Invincible, is a perfect fit for a green ring. If you ever wonder why the name of the book is Invincible, it's certainly not because of the main character's power set or durability. Mark gets his butt kicked a lot. Now, credit where credit is due, Mark is often fighting in a much higher metaphorical weight class than his own, but that itself demonstrates his incredible willpower. Mark isn't invincible physically, he's meant to be invincible mentally. That's not to say he doesn't have his moments of doubt, he has a lot of them actually, just like many other Green Lanterns. But just like them, he always resolves to keep pushing forward and stand up for what he believes is right. The tough decisions that Mark makes, and the seemingly impossible battles that he manages to win throughout the series, are all demonstrative of that Green Lantern level willpower that Mark has developed in the course of his superhero career. If you don't know about the Indigo Lantern Corps, they're essentially the color of compassion on the emotional spectrum, but with a twist. Rather than seek out those with great compassion, they bond to individuals that are particularly lacking in it, so sociopaths and villains are prime real estate for this Lantern Corps. Now this one was tough to decide on because, damn, there's a ton of amazingly, shockingly evil villains across a lot of great independent comics, but for both the sake of relevance and brevity, I'm gonna go with Homelander. Most people probably know Homelander from the show, where his character is a lot more nuanced and much more interesting, but The Boys comic book by Garth Ennis is where the character originated, and honestly, he's a lot more boring there. He unsurprisingly serves as one of the main antagonists and just acts like evil Superman with way less complexity and dynamacy compared to the show. So why give him an Indigo ring? Well, he's still an evil sociopath, deserving of an Indigo ring, but perhaps there's another Homelander from the Boys comic who would fit right into the Indigo Corps even better. That's right, Black Noir, Homelander's genetic clone and teammate on the Seven, is an even better choice for an Indigo ring. He performs some particularly disgusting and heinous deeds in the comics, stuff I can't even show or mention unfortunately, but trust me, he is much worse in the comic than any of the Amazon series counterparts, and I feel like it fits because he's still kind of Homelander in a backwards way. A great villain, completely devoid of compassion, that would certainly be sought out by an Indigo ring. Next is the Violet Lanterns, the Star Sapphire Corps, representing love on the emotional spectrum. Now stay with me here, but the Demon Prince himself, Hellboy, is just about perfect for a Violet Lantern ring. Hellboy might not strike you at first as a particularly loving individual, being a big, muscly, grizzled, generally pissed off demon monster, but if you're a fan of his like myself, you know that's all in appearances. In actuality, Hellboy is just a big softie on the inside. It's made abundantly clear by the narrative that this complete change of nature by Hellboy is in large part due to his upbringing by his adoptive father, Professor Broom, and his relationships with mortal individuals like Liz Sherman, Abe Sapien, and others. Hellboy, originally the spawn of a fanatic human witch woman and a powerful demon, was conceived in order to bring about a war between heaven and hell and destroy the earth. Instead, he bucks that destiny and chooses to fight for good, even if he is sometimes reluctant. While it's quite subtle, clearly Hellboy must feel a significant amount of love and affection for his father, his friends, allies in the BPRD, and cats. Yellow is the color of fear on the emotional spectrum, and they are basically the sworn enemies of the Green Lanterns in DC. To be a Yellow Lantern, you have to be scary, and there's one iconic character that really stands out to me as being able to inspire great fear in others, and that's gotta be Judge Dredd. Judge Dredd is essentially a super cop in the near dystopian future of Mega City 1, and since he acts as judge, jury, and executioner to any criminals who break the law severely enough, I think he inspires plenty of fear to be worthy of a yellow ring. Keep in mind, in universe, Dredd is also known the world round for his ruthlessness and cold, calculating demeanor. Criminals all throughout Mega City 1 fear Judge Dredd, and considering this is a giant megalopolis spanning much of the US East Coast, that's a ton of people and a ton of fear. If you ever witness any interactions between Dredd and the criminals he's hunting, it's clear they know him and his methods, and he's probably the last judge they would want to come in contact with. I think it's comparable to Batman from DC, who, keep in mind, has also been offered a yellow ring before. Except with Dredd, that fear factor is really turned up to 11, because the Dredd stories are just way more brutal and gritty. He seems like an easy pick for yellow. Blue is the color of hope on the emotional spectrum. And this may seem like it's out of left field, but I think Phone Bone from the Bone comic series is just about the perfect fit for a Blue Lantern. Within the Bone story, Phone Bone doesn't really change too much as a character. Instead, he really fits that classic static hero archetype. And that's a good thing. The author really makes it work because Phone is just so endearing, honestly. And of course, Phone Bone is constantly a beacon of great hope throughout the story, always putting himself on the line for his family and friends, and generally just being a great little dude. The story gives a couple red herrings as to the true chosen one of the narrative, like the mix-up with Phony Bone early on. And sure, Thorn goes through the stereotypical hero's journey, but ultimately, it is Phone Bone's loyalty and hopeful, optimistic outlook on life that prevails in the end. Other characters might act as the hero, but Phone is the true focus, highlighting that true heroism and courage can be found even in the lonely everyman that Phone represents. I like to compare it to Lord of the Rings, where there's all these important characters with a destiny paramount to the story, but really the narrative focuses on Sam and Frodo, two lowly hobbits. Consider also everyone's attitude towards Phone. Even when things look dire, as long as Phone is there, his friends can still hold some hope and optimism. Next up, let's talk about Spawn. Probably the most iconic independent comic character that there is, if you ask me. His comic books and character were deeply influential in the 90s, and he still is. Now originally, I was thinking Spawn was a dead ringer for a yellow ring, for fear of course. While I still think that holds some water, I think a red ring, for anger, might actually fit Spawn's character and personality even better. As an ex-mercenary who died, went to hell, and returned as a Hellspawn in order to wage war against crime and injustice on Earth, Al Simmons, or Spawn, is angry. And I find one of the best parts of the Spawn comics is how particularly creative he is in punishing the evildoers that he encounters. Whether it's racists, PDF files, or anything in between, his particularly sadistic and poetic methods of execution speak to his incredibly furious mental state after being tricked into his new life. As such an iconic character too, it would be so neat to see a redesign of Spawn's typical look, but with a stronger, angrier red motif. Finally, for an Orange Lantern, the color of avarice or greed, the first character to come to mind was Gideon Graves from the Scott Pilgrim books. Out of all the many villains Scott Pilgrim faces in this story, Gideon is probably the one with the least amount of redeemable qualities. The guy is just genuinely a horrible ex-boyfriend who still covets Ramona, who plans to cryogenically freeze her as he's done to several of his other ex-girlfriends. Gideon especially represents the kind of greed that can result from an evil person who wants what they can't have. And the Scott Pilgrim story demonstrates the destruction and misery that kind of obsession can cause for all those involved in it. While it's not an overwhelming, all-consuming greed for everything that he can get his hands on, Gideon's particular flavor of avarice is indeed powerful, unnerving, and drives much of his actions throughout the story. That seems like an easy Orange Lantern to me. Alrighty everybody, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, a like and subscribe and expect more soon. Thanks!